a key reason why he cannot win in 2020 is because of this triple conjunction in Capricorn opposing his Venus-Saturn. Venus is the ruler of the zenith and the MC, the midheaven. And so this becomes a really problematic alignment. And if you look at the ephemeris, you can see that this triple conjunction is operating the whole year. These red boxes are because it's in opposition. That's why I've drawn it this way. But I also show with a yellow line when it begins, which is early in the year, and it continues all the way through. One of the things that I've discovered over the years in regard to cycles is once the cycle begins, until it's completely through the degrees involved, it's in play. It doesn't have to be exact at any given point. It can be, and that can add to the tension. But if Saturn, for example, reaches 24 degrees, which therefore puts it in contact with this MC, then you see it up here, 24, you look through, and all this time, even though there it's doing a station and it's very powerful and so forth, until it's right through, it isn't finished. Right? Now, this also connects to something that has been brought up, which is that even as these planets are opposing in this direction, they're also trining the MC, which is considered a positive, helpful, winning type of aspect. So we can put that line there to illustrate it. And the question is, can this help? And my answer to that is no, it does not help. It does not balance out the negative effect of these planets opposing in this direction, opposing the ruler of that area. And if you say, well, how do you know that? The response is actually pretty simple. You see, it's already happened. In this area here, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, early in the year, are actually trining that MC. And so, if you look at election time, this red line down here, they're again trining. But you'd have to convince me that what was going on up here, which for all intents and purposes is terrible, terrible luck. It's the beginning of the pandemic response, which he completely botched. And we look at, for example, April, which has late April, a Pluto station, 25 degrees, directly trining that point. You could argue that April 2020 is probably the worst month of Trump's life, based on the fact that the pandemic accelerated, 60,000 people lost their lives. He talked about, drinking bleach. It was the month that he said it would go away, and it didn't. This month may be the month that becomes the focal point for his loss, as it is brought up in ads and in references as we move into the election season. So you can see that the trine is not working. Now, you'd have to tell me, you'd have to counter by saying, well, how do you know that all of that isn't going to somehow accrue in a positive way once you reach this point here, when it's trining again, or perhaps a bit later, if he wins and you've got a trine here. That seems completely implausible to me. Generally speaking, and I say generally, but it's actually quite specific. When you see an aspect and you see what it's doing, it tends to repeat. Things don't happen in one direction or one way on the first pass and then switch to a different effect later. That's not how it works. And most importantly, notice that Saturn, which is the key planet many times, when you're looking at judging how something will turn out, look to Saturn. Notice that Saturn, at election time, 2620, it's very close to opposed the Venus. Venus is 2544. And remember that there is something that I do when I'm looking at events, particularly as a person is post 72 years of age. There's a precession correction which tends to delay the transit effects around events. So you pretty much can add about a degree per planet to see the exact point of the hit. If you do that, you've got Venus at 26, 44, 45. So essentially, this Saturn is precisely opposed as people are voting. This is basically what is known as no. The answer is no.